Morning, folks. Welcome to COVID stream number 4. I can't believe it's been a month plus already that I've been locked in this house with my loving family. Today, if you saw in the title, we're going to be talking about toolkits. We're going to have, so far, 2 guests. We've got Ivan and Jason. I don't know if Chris will be dropping in. Let's say good morning to the boys. Morning, Ivan. Morning, Jason.
Good morning.
Good morning. Everyone's audio's working. What's happening here? We've got a lot of chat going on. I saw Nerb, Sharif, who else? Charles is here. A lot of familiar faces. Rusty, Ligurien, Vlast, morning. Vlast again.
Super Dave's already complaining.
Super Dave? He's a complainer. Super Smarty Marty. Bon Matin from Sutton. Dennis, Charles again. Rollins, hey Peter, morning. Jack of all trades, Sharif. All right, guys, let me see if I can turn on the chat so that we can actually see it. Go to the bottom. Hit start on this puppy, and there we go. It should start rolling. Is it rolling? And then we'll see that, okay, we got our chat in the bottom. Hey, it covers up a lot of Jason. That's good. Jason, yeah, stand up taller. Get above the banner. Start auto loop. Okay, that's what we want. Okay, I think it should start scrolling all by itself, but I'll keep an eye on it. All right, so tools. This is something that we get asked quite a bit over the years. The things that people are always asking us is riding equipment and tools. So we decided that that would be our topic for today. So let me just get rid of that. It's right over Jason's face. It's kind of irritating. There you go. All right, we'll just keep an eye on the chat. Hey, you're back. First things first, I hope everyone's got their booster. I have not boosted yet today, and it is my birthday, by the way.
Oh, happy-ish birthday.
Yes, thank you. I think this is already open, so Havana Club. I don't know if you can get Havana Club.
That's good.
Well, I got the liquor store now delivers since of this outbreak. So I actually got my delivery and only took 10 days. So I guess if you're a raging alcoholic...
Isn't that 10 days faster than advertised?
Well, they said 5 to 21.
Oh, okay. Oh.
Yeah, but so if you're an alcoholic, plan in advance. That's today's tech tip.
I went with the
teabag
Scottish stuff.
Is there a special way to drink teabag, Jason?
In reclusion?
With a close friend, a very close friend.
I don't think you're supposed to advertise drinking this stuff.
And what are you running over there, Ivan?
I'm trying to get rid of your the stuff that you left at my place, the Bushmills.
You're not making a lot of progress there. You definitely do not have a problem.
Add sugar.
Add sugar. All right. Hey, thanks. A lot of birthday wishes. Thanks, folks. The big 55, the double nickel. Fun. Although you do, oddly enough, start to save money on your insurance at 50 because you can join the old age club at 50. So I'm saving like $150 a year. So let's talk tools. So the way I kind of broke it down was kind of the basic stuff. So maybe we could all just go around and I'll start maybe and just say, from my point of view, number one thing is you've got to be able to fix a flat. I'm amazed how many times I've seen guys out on the trail or even on the side of the road, and they don't have what it takes to fix a flat. I can understand maybe if you've got your Honda Shadow and you're riding around the neighborhood, but if you're going off the beaten path even a little bit, it just mystifies me why someone wouldn't have what it takes to fix a flat, especially if you're riding a bike that has tubeless tires, because the 99% of the time you get a puncture from a nail or something, you pull out a plug and you're back on the road in 5 minutes. So it's a little bit of a mystery. What do you guys think? What's kind of that basic bare minimum?
I'd say spare fasteners actually before a tool. Well, and something to screw it in.
Yeah.
Because when you lose something, it's if you can't keep your seat tied down, then it's an annoying ride. You ride like I won't say it.
Well, you also did how long a year plus trip on a KTM 640, so maybe loosening fasteners
Hey,
is something you're more familiar with.
The only fasteners I lost on that bike happened to be the fasteners for the Touratech rack on it.
Mm-hmm. So, well, I do.
But,
where is it? I do carry, and this I actually got a little inspiration, I think, from you, Ivan. I did put together a little mystery bucket of like the common size bolts, and that's something, and obviously zip ties, wire, whatever, but yeah, a few mystery bolts.
You got a bit better than me. You have a nice little pouch. I have a yucky Ziploc bag.
Is it at least wet?
No, it managed to dry out over winter. So, but it's still pretty, whatever. You can see the color of it, but that's the same thing. It's, like Jason says, obviously, carrying around a few odd ends of the most common nuts and bolts on your bike, and at least I know a Leatherman tool or something to put them in, definitely helps.
Yeah, like what's in it?
They don't take much room.
Like this is what I've got, and there's no, major thought process that went into this. I kind of just grabbed what I had, some washers in case you got to put something in a bigger hole, and of course the beauty of the metric system, there's only so many sizes used, and also some bigger ones just because if you ever need to jury rig something, you've got it. And like I'm saying, it fits in this tiny little pouch, and you can see not super big. So certainly on the list is some spare fasteners and some sort of a device to wrench on them, especially since most motorcycles now, the toolkits have gone to crap. And if we look at changing a spare tire, this, the kind of standard fender bag, and actually this fits on the back of my bike. I don't put it on the front fender. That sits on the fender. And
have you actually managed to put a heavy duty tube in there? My fender bag, there's no way to put a heavy duty.
No, like this is kind of a not the thin tube. It's a little bit fatter, and it just barely jams in there. And I've got it. It's in a plastic bag, and it's taped up just so that it doesn't get a hole worn in it. And this tape is not pink, by the way. This is salmon.
It's just flesh.
Just for any flesh, it's Barbie doll skin color. But yes,
the wrapping up your tube like that really works. For the year trip I took, I had one wedged in a place where there was a lot of abrasion, and I took it out after the trip, and it was fine. But, but had I not wrapped it up, I don't think it would have survived.
Well, here's a good comment.
It's the one thing.
Go ahead.
Yeah, when people are carry a spare tube, you have to be careful of how you carry it, also to make sure that you don't wear a hole into it, and then it becomes totally useless when you actually need to use it. I've seen that happen more than once where people on the side of the road, they have a tube and they stop us and say, "Oh, you guys got a spare tube?" Why? What's wrong with that one?
Yep.
Well, it's worn out. So
a lot of guys have found out that a hole in the rubber can lead to long-term issues.
Unexpected consequences.
Yes. Some Nerb here and some of the guys were having a conversation, which is interesting too in the chat, which is that if you have a flat, it doesn't necessarily stop you. As we all know, Ivan, one of those years at the FAR, we were just too lazy to change your flat front, and you drove like 11 kilometers back to the start on a flat. And I know, Jason, when you first bought the 500, you had 2 flats at the same time. And you drove all the way back.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a flat tire is not... Go ahead.
And then I had my friends fix both flats, and they did a very good job, because the next time I went out, I again had 2 flats.
But I believe they might have been overserved at that.
Yeah, it might have been also the context.
Yes. Dave here says bug spray for when Riley leaves you in the woods, steals your bike and disappears. That's only happened once, so I don't know why Dave is so worried about that. But yeah, so your tube, actually, well protected.
Someone wrote a bug net.
Yep.
Definitely.
Yeah, yeah. And then for the tire tools, this is what I carry, but doink. Some people like 2 irons. I like at least 3. These I got years ago. These are actually, I think I got these for my birthday because I would be way too cheap to buy these. These are titanium tire irons from Aerostitch, so this weighs nothing. And then I've got this one, which this has actually the shape I really like. And this thing weighs nothing as well. It's a Motion Pro, and it's got the size to do my rear wheel on it, which I like. And I also have an adapter that fits in here that turns it into a 3/8 drive socket. And this little guy, you can thread through the hole in the rim onto the inner tube valve and pull it through. So it's not a must. It doesn't weigh anything, but man, sometimes that is nice. And this little gadget, you put it on the rim and it keeps the tire from sitting on the bead. Same thing, not a necessity, but also weighs literally, I don't know, a few grams. Ivan, I hear you banging around. What do you got?
It's pretty much the same thing. I think we all like the Motion Pro. I stick mine under my seat. Same thing.
Let's go to the Ivan cam.
I use just 2.
Yeah.
2 of the Motion Pro tire levers. Same thing, because I have a 32 and a 27 to do the front and the rear, and a 10mm wrench, and a spare tube, and an inflator. So that's basically all I have or the basic tools to change tire flat.
And someone just mentioned
you need something to inflate.
Yeah, somebody just mentioned what size should you carry, and I think most of us, we only carry a 21. We carry a 21, and you can jam it in the back if you have to. Like, so I think it's Craig here was asking if you have 2 different sizes, you can put a 21 in the back, and some of us have done quite a few miles with a 21 in the back.
I did that for a while.
To get out of the forest, and as one spare, I always carry just a 21 standard duty tube, because it's the most compact, and it'll get you out of wherever you are, no problem, until you get a replacement tube, or you can do quite a bit of mileage on a standard tube. Paying,
yeah,
this is that it's there. So
yeah, this is an 18, which on some like multi-day events, I'll bring a 21 and an 18, or it's kind of nice if at least one person in the group. If you got 5 guys, there's no point in having 5 21s. It's nice to have maybe 1 18. So, we usually have that. And then, as Ivan was mentioning, you need some way to inflate that sucker. I mean, I know some people just roll with CO2. You know what? I've had some bad experiences where you put in a tube, you pinch it, you do something, or there's something in the rim that damages multiple tubes, and all of a sudden your CO2 is gone. Well, if you have a mechanical pump, a hand pump, or in my case, I have this little pump made by Moto Pumps. I mean, that's the pump. It's small, and I just have the CO2 as a backup. But really, this thing works really well. Not affiliated, obviously. It comes with a nice long cable, so you can plug it in. And this is also handy because you're not just pumping up your tires necessarily when you have a flat. If you're airing down when you go off-road, if you're pumping up when you get on the highway, I like something like, and look there, that's pretty small. What, Jason,
I want to upgrade to that little pump because it really works well. I have the cheap $15 slime from Walmart.
Yeah.
But I'm curious about, Jason, what you were using on your trip for a long distance. We're just doing our weekend things, but on a longer trip, you probably experimented a bit more on the different pumps.
For the pump wise, I had I think it was from BMW. It's about this big, and it's a foot actuated pump. So because the 640 doesn't have the greatest electrical system, I was a bit weary of having something that would suck juice. And also, when I left, there were no pumps that had actually electric pumps that had they didn't have bad reviews for duration. Like they give up the ghost after a few uses. And the pump worked really well. And I've actually switched over recently to a because it's an event that doesn't happen very often. So when it does happen, I don't really mind spending a little extra time by packing down smaller. So I got a bicycle pump that is about the size of a cigar case.
Okay.
So obviously, inflating a rear tire takes a while, but on the bike it weighs nothing. It takes no space. So that's and it that one goes to 140 psi, which is for a tubeless system. The inner tube is 100 to 110 psi. So that's
that's true. You got to pump up tubeless. That's like a lot of psi.
Yeah.
Someone.
And if you were,
sorry, go ahead.
If you were to do a multi-day trip, more like multi-week trip, you need to pump up the tubeless once in a while because the pressure is so high, the air permeates through the rubber, so it slowly.
And someone here mentioned too, 4 or 5 days you'd bring a patch kit, and I have one of those too, because if you got your one tube and you blow it, it's nice. And I've actually had some decent success now with patches because I spent some time in the garage playing with the kits where I had a bunch of garbage tubes that has holes in it, and instead of trying to do it on the side of the trail, I actually read the directions, followed them meticulously, and I did something that I used to do when I used to patch them on my mountain bike years ago, which was I would take 2 washers or toonies or loonies, put one on either side of where the patch is, and clamp it with my vice grips and let it sit for 5 minutes. And man, I inflated a couple of tubes, even some heavy duty ones, and just let them sit all ballooned out for like a week and didn't lose anything. So the patch kit can definitely work. Someone said a 21-inch in the rear. Yeah.
Yeah.
What brand of pump is yours? My pump is, and they're not sponsoring us, sadly. We're not getting any free crap. This is Moto Pumps, and he's on Adventure Rider. That's where I bought it. And I think when you look inside these things, a lot of the guts, because I've also bought the Walmart Canadian Tire Special. The guts look pretty similar in all of them. You know, so he's just stripped away most of the plastic and come up with this design, which is nice. The other thing which is nice about this is that it's got the output, but you can also check the pressure while you're pumping. So you can actually keep hitting your pressure gauge on this while you're pumping, which is kind of nice, because all the ones that have the built-in gauge, the gauge is total garbage, so I wouldn't even bother. Yeah. So tire stuff.
There's one thing that for a long trip, I never carry this other than for long, well, like really long trips where you're going to be changing tires along the way. Especially, well, maybe in the more first world countries, it's not a problem, but when you go down low, you know you're going to need to change a tire, but you don't know what you're going to have access to. And some tires are way more difficult to put back on than others, like when the sidewalls are stiff. Mm-hmm. So I bring this monster,
Jesus.
Which is, I think, 14 inches. Yeah.
Wow.
But this thing, it'll take off a truck tire. A truck tire.
And where do you carry that?
This one was in the saddlebags.
Okay.
Because it's,
wow.
Yeah. And
nice.
Somebody had told me that to bring some spare duct tape. It's yeah, this duct tape is not plastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do we got in the comments here? Yeah, you can buy the $15 Canadian tire pump, and that's what I used for years, and strip off all the plastic. I had a couple of those, and I changed the chuck and the switch. So I kind of customized those, and I still have one of those in the Ural, and it's been working for 10 years. Hand pumps, too. A lot of guys. Someone was talking about Chris. Yeah, we got a lot of video of Chris over the years pumping up the rear shock on the HP2. He's not as good at it now. Now he's been married a few years. Doesn't have the same wrist strength. CO2 is great until you need just one more. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan. Trigger got his stickers. Okay, cool. So we've got our tubes. We got some sort of irons to get the things off. I know some people worry about scratching the rims, so there's all kinds of crap that Motion Pro sells, little rim protectors, or people will bring part of a windshield washer fluid bottle or a strip of leather. Or I don't think any of us are really in the camp where we're sweating scratching the rim a little on the side of the trail. So I don't think that's never really been a big issue for us. The other thing that's part of my tire changing kit is this. And I do this with anything I don't want to get wet. Old inner tube, fold over the ends, another piece of inner tube to make an elastic, and it does not leak. You can submerge this, it will not leak. And in here is, and of course you don't have to put it in here if you don't care about it getting wet, but we tend to get moist relatively often. Yep. My little saw. This is my little silky, and this thing weighs nothing. And it's, you know, it's long enough that you can easily zip through a 6-inch log. So this is the Silky Professional, what do they call it? The 180. I think it's the 180, 7.5 inch. So this sucker, whenever someone has a flat, you zip off into the shrubbery, find a branch, cut it, bring it back, and now you've got a prop to get the front wheel off the ground or to stabilize the bike, whatever you're doing. So this becomes your, you know, you can carry, like some guys will bring along something like this. I think Marc Olivier had one of these, and I found out, and I had one too kicking around. You can bring something like this that comes with a little attachment to screw in there, and you can prop up your bike. But if I had to choose between this or this baby wins every time, because not only can you make crap, and we've used this multiple times to prop up bikes, but you've also got something to clear the trail, which, as Ivan and Jason, were you on that ride too, where all the trees were down?
No, it was with Mark and Chris.
Yeah, on the Dakar.
No, the Dakar.
the acre, yeah.
Oh, that
where
because we also used it
a couple hundred kilometers
in-
before you wrecked the HP2.
Yeah.
We hacked through the forest for a couple hours, and ever since I've been carrying a. Well, if I know that I'm going something I don't know about the trail, I'll also bring I got a
Whoa.
Holy crap!
the biggest.
Nice. Are you
We go on sale at
compensating?
Canadian Tire Craft price.
You compensating for something?
Not at all.
Because Jason only carries a
carry it?
pocket knife. So yeah, that's nice, and I guess if we had our act together, we wouldn't need to bring 5 of these. We could probably, that's the thing is, I guess, if you're setting up with 3 people and you're going on a trip, you can obviously have a little bit of redundancy without everybody bringing 5 saws or whatever. Well, if you're going to be going solo, I guess it's a little bit different. So we
Something
got
I
that
do
little
with
puppy.
the event, like the Daker and all that. I'll get a spreadsheet out for the guys on a common drive and try to planning your tools when you're doing a group ride for a big event or a multi-day event is sometimes a good thing, because you end up carrying way too much shit if you don't do it.
Yep.
And you try to spread out the tubes, the tube sizes, and things like that, so that you don't have to carry an excess amount of tools. But if you're going by yourself, well, you got to kind of bring everything.
Tubeless and not sealing. Yep. Yeah. I mean, have any of you had issues with tubeless not sealing properly? I think, Jason, you answered that.
Yeah, there's also it hasn't happened to me, but one thing to look out for the tubeless seal is if the lip of the rim is bent, like hitting rocks will do. That basically takes you out.
Mm.
But you can still roll on it, but be more dangerous.
Yeah. So I don't know if you guys have any more tire-related wisdom. I think that
before you seal everything up, make sure you still have all your tire irons.
Oh yes, that's Chris and I had a bad day where we goofed. We had a couple of pinch flats and screwed up the tube, and then when we came time to pack up, one of these irons was missing, and we searched the parking lot for 20 minutes, and then finally we went, it's got to be in the tire. And we pulled that rear tire off for like the 5th time, and sure enough, one of these irons was in there, which we were just about to hop on the highway, so that probably would have ended badly. So tires, then tools. I can see Jason's eyebrows are being raised because I know he travels way lighter. But this is my little setup. This is a tool roll I just bought years ago. You can see for size, it's not huge. It's got some heft to it. Wink. So that's what's in there. My thing,
So
I know
well
some people go crazy light. I also carry tools because I ride with Chris, so we know he's got no tools. So unless you want to be stuck in the woods with Chris for the whole day, you have to have tools for Chris's bike too. So, I do pretend to care about lightness with these weird Japanese wrenches, but it's not just stuff that fits my bike. So I've got like a socket rail. Oh, fresh coffee inbound. Thank you. Oh, old coffee. Thank you. There we go. Say again? What do you want? Balloons? No. I think someone's getting organized for a birthday event. We'll get them after. So, and the one thing that I like to carry is I like a ratchet. I know a lot of people get by with just wrenches and stuff, but I actually, if I got to start taking stuff apart, I want a ratchet, and this is a little snap-on 3/8. So it's tiny, full rail of sockets, full rail of Torx, extension, and then the common wrenches. And these wrenches have a little insert that also turns them into a ratchet. And because they have the... So that's basically what's in here. Zip ties. And this is the insert for that Motion Pro. So in theory, I could, pare this down quite a bit, but in the grand scheme of being obese, I'm not really sweating the weight. So basically, I've got my sockets, my wrenches, a ratchet, and some Allen keys. That's it. So I don't know, Ivan, what do you? I know you brought out some goodies.
Yeah, it's a bit of the same. I'll try to get it out here. Actually, I weighed some of the stuff just for fun yesterday. Try to spread it out and move the camera.
I mean, I find some, the old adage is that you're supposed to do your maintenance with the tools in your toolkit, and then you'd be pretty well equipped to do any sort of roadside repair if you have all the tools in your kit that you can need to deal with the standard maintenance you do on your bike. And the one thing which is in here somewhere is a spark plug wrench, because that's something that has happened on multiple rides where when I first had the Husky, I didn't have the right size, and luckily Jason had one, because when we flooded out the 701, there was no way we were going to get that spark plug out. And on a few of the rides, guys have run back to us at the Fundy. Anybody got a spark plug wrench for an F800? Everybody got a spark plug wrench for this bike. So if you're going to be doing water crossings, you better have the right spark plug wrench.
And
so now we got
because, yeah, often these spark plugs, they have to have a very thin wall socket, otherwise they won't fit. If you just have a standard whatever hardware store spark plug wrench for your lawnmower, it might not fit. Like I know in the BMWs you have to have some fancy schmancy tool, otherwise it doesn't fit.
Some of them are long.
So that,
like
and
the BMW, and some of them you got to get really down in there.
I basically almost the same thing, a bit of the same as Riley, a bit less. I also like the ratchet, and I didn't take these out yet, but on a longer weekend trip, I'll take the stubby 15, 17, 19 for some of the bigger. And then these are the masterpiece. People who don't know about the Nipex plier wrench,
yep.
They are
actually
great.
I agree with
adjustable wrenches are one thing, but these, the more you tighten on these, the tighter they'll grip, and it's small, and I can actually use this as a backup to take off the biggest bolt on the bike, which is a 32 for the wheel axle, and pinch, squeeze, whatever, it works a treat. And a couple odds and ends. Like the hardest part I found about having a toolkit is knowing what to put in it. So if people want to trick and do a bit of your own maintenance, start working on your bike and only using the toolkit that you'll carry. And then put them all together, say, I used all of this, and after a while you'll try to start to clean out and streamline your toolkit to a minimum of what you need. And you can, with this, I can take apart the bike almost like 90%. Got a few extra tips for the Torx and Allen wrenches and adapters, spare key. Yes, it is the new key. And
yeah, I mean, I think that's the
side stand dongle.
Oh yes, on those new bikes, if the side stand switch dies, you can't just hotwire it. You need a resistor, and on the newer bikes, you actually need the bypass dongle. So if you don't have one of those, you'll be getting towed out of the woods
Riley,
like I was.
I was carrying this one for you because I don't even need it on mine.
Nice.
And,
Too bad we didn't invite you on that ride.
Yeah, you didn't invite me. Too bad. I didn't go to a fancy. I'd like to buy some of those lightweight titanium wrenches, but I just got what I had doubled up in my toolbox. So extra wrenches. Not one is of the same style or brand.
Yeah.
It's just leftovers from everywhere. A Snap-on 10mm, a gear wrench 8mm, and a Canadian Tire whatever. So that's that's it.
An important thing is that when you having spares, basically when you're working on your bike, you want to put all your tools in your pouch, but never scavenge from it when you're doing something else, right? Because then you end up with on the trail. Oh, I forgot it at home because I had to fix the brake or whatever.
Yeah.
So you end up if you're going to make your own pouch, get duplicates.
And the thing is, you know what?
Replenish.
I think everybody has a bucket of extra sockets and wrenches kicking around, so I think it's not hard to find. I also realized, like, for that Motion Pro stuff, if you really want to go ultralight, you can get the adapter that turns it into a 3/8 ratchet, and you can also get the insert, which changes the size of the wrench, so that will do the front axle. So in theory, you could have this one device, and it's your ratchet. It doesn't actually ratchet, but it will take a 3/8 socket. And then this gives you two other sizes. And it's Husqvarna blue. So what more could you possibly ask for?
I would not
Jason's
use
absolutely
that
right.
for replacing.
Say again?
Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, Jason's absolutely right when I'm saying if you want to build up your kit to work with the tools from your toolkit, you do that. But like you said, don't go scavenging. If you're gonna one day you got to work on the bike and you're gonna say, "Oh, I'll go from my toolbox, go from the toolkit on the bike." Don't do that. Do one or the other. Otherwise, for sure, it's a recipe for disaster. You're gonna be stuck somewhere and you're gonna need that tool.
Yep.
So at some point, you double up. You have your tools at home, and then you have the tools in the toolkit for the bike, and those. You never scavenge for them when you're working at home.
And Nerd1 was asking, how do you get that coffee service? It's really easy. We have one of those Alexa. So what I did is I set an alarm upstairs that said, at 10:30, bring Dad a coffee. So, technology. The other thing I like, there's my socket for the spark plug, is these are the Wera extensions, and they lock. So you got a little button. When you lock it, it doesn't come off. And that's great in a lot of situations where you got to get deep in there and you don't want to lose that socket. So those are nice. And they're not super expensive. A lot of the Wera stuff is very pricey, but I got these on Amazon. And they're really nice extensions.
Ready?
Yep.
For the Motion Pro socket ratchet thing.
Yeah.
I would not use it as I would not replace an actual what do you call it?
Ratchet.
Because it doesn't have a ratcheting action. You're going to have a very coarse
because you're
the ratchet has like 5 degrees or something. So
yeah,
sometimes when you're in a little place, you don't have a lot of range of motion. That's
why I love this Snap-on. I got this for my birthday years ago because I think it's pretty outrageous. It's got tiny clicks, like very tiny, and it's 3/8, but it's so small you don't over tighten stuff. And that's the snag with most 3/8 ratchets on, this thing. It's tiny, which I like.
Yeah, mine is similar, and because our engines are all aluminum, it's really easy to strip anything. So with these things,
And what's happening?
Yeah,
in
I
the
also
chat?
just use 1/4 inch drive everything on my bike. Same thing, so you
Yep.
don't over tighten anything. And I've actually managed to loosen every single bolt on the bike with a 1/4 inch
Yeah.
short ratchet. And some were asking still about the
Nipex.
the pliers, the Nipex.
And they also make pliers with a serrated jaw, which you wouldn't necessarily want to use on your bike. But around the house, those, I think they call them Cobra. Those things are amazing. Like you have your regular channel lock slip joint pliers. You buy the Cobra. Hold on, I think I have some.
And they open up huge for the size of the pliers. They're really amazing.
Yeah, you got these babies. So this is similar thing. And man, the jaws, whatever hardening process they use on those teeth, those things are super sweet for around the house. So toolkit,
Also for
I think
the
go ahead, Jason.
for the 1/4 inch ratchet, some pieces, sockets you put on are actually 3/8. They're just carrying this tiny little adapter from 1/4 to 3/8.
Good point. I do exactly the same. I do the same thing. Yeah, a 1/4 inch to 3/8 drive, and then you can have a couple of bigger sockets.
Yeah.
So obviously, I think it's pretty common sense. Carry all the fasteners that you need to work on your bike. And what can screw you up though, is you buy some aftermarket handguards, and they use Allen keys, and everything else on your bike is Torx. Or you have a steering damper, and the mount for the steering damper uses Allen keys. So, the more you customize your bike, the more odd sizes you get. And sometimes when you buy stuff from the States, you'll even get non-metric fasteners on some things, which really adds to the fun.
Yeah, that's a very good point. That's what I personally, because I go on sometimes longer trips and all that, I really change out any bolt that is not OEM. Like in those kits, the aftermarket stuff you'll get will be just the standard hardware fasteners there. I'll find the equivalent OEM. I have a bucket of OEM bolts and all that, and I'll change them out so that I keep everything standardized. And on the, probably other brands too, but KTM, Husqvarna, they have even standardized the bolt sizes in a sense that a 5 and a 6 millimeter bolt will still need an 8 millimeter wrench. They'll do one wrench size for 2 bolt sizes. So you minimize the amount of tools that you need to work on the bike. So I swap out, and I do not put as much as possible, any bolts that are not from the KTM bolt bin.
Yeah.
So that helps a lot. It's something to consider.
Because one thing I started doing. Oh, go ahead, Jason.
Sorry. The one other consideration is that when you get aftermarket stuff that comes with their own fasteners, the fasteners tend, in my experience, to be soft as butter. As soon as you put a little bit of torque on them, they just strip out. While when you get the OEM stuff, the bolts are harder than your tools. So
yeah, it's and one thing I've done is, going back years, I bought a little organizer box, and every time I take something off the bike, because you're adding different hand cards, skid plate, I keep all the metric motorcycle fasteners in one place. They don't just pile into my general garage garbage. And that box has been so handy when you go, either I'm selling the bike and I want to put it back to stock and I need all those fasteners again, or you've lost a fastener. Because here, even though Canada is metric, if you go to the hardware store, there's no metric fasteners. So
thank God for what is it, McMaster cars?
McMaster Car now delivers to Canada. How many days did it take you to get your stuff, Jason?
I think it's 2 or 3. It was unbelievably fast.
And I think
I saw that Ohio.
It's amazing. So McMaster Car for that metric stuff. Someone asked, do you guys carry tire lube? I stopped using soap and switched to proper lube. We've never had an issue. Like, not on the Trailside repairs. We just change it.
What is tire
Yeah,
lube?
on the trailside repairs, we just change.
Yep.
Sometimes WD-40
Yeah.
to get it to slip a bit, because you're doing a bush repair. So
Yeah.
at home, I use soapy water. That's it.
Yeah. I bought a tire changer years ago that came with a tub of some crap, which is what I use at home. And it does make it a bit easier, but realistically, no, we don't. I don't carry any.
Actually,
certainly.
I used to, for a while, I used to use,
Windex?
I don't remember exactly what I was using on, but it was a very, kind of an oil.
Mhm.
And I noticed that was a really bad idea because the oil would never dry out and the tire would slip.
Yeah.
It
You
would
don't have
literally
rim locks.
rotate on the wheel. So
Yeah.
since then, I've been using the water.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think we've ever really had any trailside issues. The same thing, there's lots of guys that will carry talcum powder so that the tube will slide around in there, and I don't know, I've never done it on the trail.
I'll carry just a little bit of talcum powder if I'm going when I go on my big weekend 3-4 day trip. Then I'll
But isn't
carry
that
it
for
because
your
I say, at some
crotch
point,
problems?
it's multi-purpose. You try to have your tools and gear to be as multifunctional as possible. It has to be like the Swiss Army knife of things, So.
And if you're using talcum on a regular basis, you can always swab out the tire with your undies if you need to get some talc in there. Are you prepared for another side stand safety incident? I am. I have. Where is it? Well, let's move on. That'll get us to that spot. So you got your tire repair goodies. Yeah. Then the magic potions. There's the stuff you're going to bring along to repair things. So I've got a little pouch here. Man, I haven't been in here in a while. All right.
Actually,
So this is my little bag. Same thing, not very big. I've got some dielectric grease. I've got the steel stick. So this is something where you knead it together and it makes this like rock hard kind of metal. The good old tire repair kit. Some sandpaper, the patches. So that gives me that. Master links. A couple of master links and a little piece of chain. And JB Weld, which is like a 2-part kind of epoxy. Some Loctite, piece of chain. You could fix a broken chain. Some rubber gloves. And I've got electrical tape. And this is that self-fusing silicone tape. So you could actually repair a hole in a radiator hose or something with that. What the hell's in here? Oh, this is various charging cables with all the different USB type connectors so you can charge crap. So that's kind of my, whatever you want to call it, potions. It's got everything I'd need there. If somebody punches a hole in an engine case or something, you should be able to fab something up with that. The chain master links, we've seen it, Ivan, where a guy had a chain issue and luckily you had a master link that fit his bike. Electrical tape and the JB Weld and the JB steel stick, that's really more you fall over and the shifter punches a hole in the side case or something and you got to jury rig a repair just to hold the oil in to get home. And if you're on
a note on the JB Weld, there are lots of varieties of the JB Weld. The one you want to be carrying is the fast set one.
The 5-minute.
A few years ago, I I rubbed a hole in the radiator. I said, good. I have the JB Weld stuff.
Yep.
After 24 hours, it was still not cured. So basically, pointless.
And that's where this might be better.
Yeah, I think that's too stiff to actually rub into a radiator.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. The
Never actually used it.
I've used it once, and it's like hard putty, and it's great. But the one you mix, it's liquid, right?
Yeah.
And so you can get one that with a little bit of heat, it sets in like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
That's the one you want to carry.
Oh, Ivan's making coffee. So that's
I'm making coffee.
kind of see, someone's asking, do you take a chain breaker? On bigger trips,
Yes,
I do. I have a very small, amazing chain breaker that used to be made by a company in Australia that could punch a link out without grinding it off. The pin never bends. The company stopped making them. But once again, I took it out of my toolkit to do something and I didn't put it back. So if I was on the side of the trail, I'd be screwed.
I use a file to just grind it off. Takes
Grind
forever,
it off.
but
Yeah.
I bought the Motion Pro kit, the compact trail kit thing. So it has a tool in there somewhere, but it also has a extra pocket to carry a bit of chain and master links that I've been giving out to other people on a regular basis. It's surprising.
Yep.
At the Fundy when we were in that mud bog, and that guy was he was really in a bad position. It would have been 10K either direction to walk out of the forest, and he had a snap chain, and man, we were his savior there. And so,
because you know what, there's certain spots where you break down where another bike can't tow you out. Like where he was stuck at the Fundy, that would have been an ATV recovery, maybe with a trailer or something, because there was no way a guy with a rope was pulling you out. I mean, we were barely able to move in that muck. What do you guys think of universal spline drive sockets and wrenches? Ivan, you can probably speak to that.
Those things with the pins and all that, I guess, talking about these universal spline drive. I think I have some here in a pouch, and they're all going to Mark to make trophies out of them.
Somebody else asked, what do you carry your stuff in? Like, I've got some of these little waterproof bags, so I try to keep stuff in there. And as I showed before, other stuff, I'll put in a little piece of inner tube. And actually, what's in this inner tube, let me just clean this crud out of here. Yep. Yeah, where did I put it now? Here it is. So what I got in here is a little multimeter.
I have one too.
Yeah, and man, that is...
Is it the same one?
Is it a Ching Yang? Mine's Radio
It's
Shack.
a Radio Shack Pocket.
Yeah, this thing, is it work? Yep, still works. Yeah, I've had this thing I had this when I used to have my Goldwing. So we're talking the 90s. And when you've got to...
You have one of these.
Ooh, you carry that on the bike?
for long trips, yeah.
Yeah, see that? The digital multimeter, if you've got to track down a broken wire, just having this to check for continuity, or if you're wondering if somebody's charging system is doing its thing, I mean, there's a million uses for this, and you can see it's tiny. The only snag is it's not waterproof, so by the time you put it somewhere waterproof, it gets a little bigger. But yeah, I'm a big fan of having a multimeter, and I have one on the 701. I got one in the Ural. I have one in my truck. You know, everything is electrical these days. And on the electrical front, shoink, what do we got in here? These babies. Just some alligator clips. And when you buy these clips, they are garbage. Every single one you buy is garbage. So I cannibalize the clips, and this is much thicker gauge wire, and these are soldered. And a couple of these, which allows you with your multimeter, you can clip on, which is nice when you're troubleshooting something. It also gives you some spare wire. And Jason, you had a breakdown with the 500, and some guy stopped, and he had some of these, and we actually used it to bypass a connector that was dead.
Yep.
And we were able to just slide these in on the other sides of the connector, and we were rolling in like 2 minutes. So ever since then, I made a couple of high quality ones, and those have gone in my little kit. The other thing that we all have, well, there's my dongle. So this is the factory dongle for the sides down switch. So I have the resistor, which I can just tape in there, but I also have this. So that will allow me to bypass the side stand safety switch, which you cannot do by just cutting the wires and twisting them together like on a KLR. So we have that puppy.
Where does that go?
It's right where the connector...
Is it low to the ground?
No, it's about halfway up the bike.
Oh, okay,
because the actual sensor has a long wire, and this goes in there.
Okay.
So that's, I don't know, it's not super expensive, $30, $40, but if you don't have it, you're unhappy. The other thing that we have is the official Awesome Players jump starter kit. So we all have one of these Anderson connectors on our bike, and 5 or 6 feet, which allows us to connect bike to bike without taking batteries of covers off, whatever. And this is just 10 gauge wire with a 45 amp Anderson connection, which I made. These are nice. You have to have a special crimping tool. And the connector is only 45 amp, but it's 45 amp continuous. So even if you run 100 amps briefly, it's not going to blow up. And then if you have to deal with someone who doesn't have the Awesome Players connector, you can plug this in. And a lot of the jump kits, even the ones made for ATVs, have these small car-style jumper leads, and you can't get in there. Like Chris's bike, we had a big problem trying to get the jump starter leads. So I found these on DigiKey, 100% copper, and man, they are way easier to get into a tight spot. So I've made, Jason, you have a set of these too, don't you? I think I gave everybody a set.
Yeah, I have the clips, but I don't have the wire.
Oh, you don't have the lead for the battery anymore?
No, I think when I sold the 690, they went with it.
Oh, I'll make up some more. I got some more wire.
He was supposed to strip it.
Yes.
Pretty sure. I should have taken it out. I took everything off that bike.
Someone asked, do you bring a torque wrench? No. I mean, trailside repair, it's going to be good and tight. It's going to be tight.
Don't we all go with it? Click.
Yeah, snap it, back off, quarter turn, and then you're good. The other thing is some means of dealing with fuel transfer. So some hose. I've got this hose here, which we've used on a few occasions just to do some siphoning so it doesn't take up any space. So that's kind of the continuation of the electrical. I know that, the same thing if you were all riding in a group, it's not like everybody needs to bring jumper cables and hose and whatever. I see Ivan's got his fancy hose. Yeah. Is that a one-way valve?
It's the Tygon. No, it's most of our bikes have quick disconnects like this lying around somewhere hidden.
Yeah.
So you can branch off of that directly if it's accessible, or it'll serve as a spare if you break one. So I just, I can pull this off if I have to, or at least I can go directly to a quick disconnect and get fuel. Because technically, I shouldn't ever run out of fuel, but I can carry fuel for other people, so you can get gas out of my bike.
So if you plug that in where your fuel filter is, that fuel filter disconnect, then you should be able to pump fuel to another bike using your fuel pump. Just turn the key and...
Exactly.
Yeah, which is nice.
Yeah.
I had that for my 1150 GS because there was a quick disconnect in an easy to access spot. So I made a same hose. You could just put that in someone's tank, turn the key, bzzz, fill their tank, Exxon Valdez style. Someone saying,
what good is a hoser without a hose? Hey.
Exactly. Plans to publish a complete list. Could make a list, I guess, but I mean, it's basically, in terms of the toolkit itself, it's whatever tools you need for your bike. So you need the right sizes. Some bikes are not well designed where you have a million different fastener sizes. So the list, we could maybe put together like an overview list. Any issues with side stand micro switch on the KTM or Husqvarna? Yeah, we were just talking about that. You have to have, on the early bikes, you can just have a 2000 ohm resistor. And on the newer bikes, 2017 and up, you have to have the factory dongle because it sends some weird sine wave signal or something. So you cannot bypass it on the cheap. So yeah, you can have hassles. Better than any tool is a reliable bike. I think you're being a little sarcastic, obviously, or funny, but the thing is, you can have the world's most reliable bike, and when you crash it and you break something, you better have some tools. So yes, a reliable bike goes a long way, but when you punch a hole in the side of the engine case in the middle of nowhere, not having a means to fix it is going to suck. Uncle Riley's breakdown service. Yes, well, when you ride with Chris, he's gotten better though. He does have some tools. I don't know if he knows what's in the tool pouch, but I think he is bringing some stuff.
No, he doesn't, because at the baker, he asked me. He called me on my way up, and he says, "Oh, I don't have a spare tube. Can you stop somewhere and pick up a tube?" So I stopped in Ottawa at 613 Motorsport. I'll plug them in here because they're really nice guys. They help out at the Ottawa Valley also and all that. And he opened up his store half an hour early so that I could buy a tube for Chris.
Yep.
Show up at the event and all that, and crashes the bike. And later, when he's back at home, says, "Yeah." He calls me or texts me later, Chris, when he's at home. He says, "Oh, I actually did have a spare tube. What I thought was the condom for the engine cover was actually a tube and not the condom for the valve cover." So, no, he does not know what he's carrying around. Like
Jake Buchanan here was saying, you can actually take the magnet off the side stand, stick it to the sensor, and move the whole assembly up and tuck it up somewhere under the bike where it's not going to get damaged. I like having a side stand safety switch. I'm just the doofy guy who will ride off with the side stand down and kill himself. So
You're that guy.
I am that guy that they designed it for. So now I have the parts to fix it. It's not a big deal, so I don't really mind having it. Don't forget the almighty douche rope. Yeah, the douche rope, I guess it's kind of a tool. This one's mangled because it's been shortened, because we actually, not only is the douche rope handy for douching, but it also gives you a piece of rope. So on a Fundy Adventure rally last year, we took the pads out of Dave's rear caliper because the rear wheel bearings were going, so his wheel was moving so much. We had to take the pads out of the caliper. So we used some of the douche rope to tie up the brake pedal so that he wouldn't accidentally push on the brakes and fire the pistons out. So the douche rope also gives you a source of rope. And somewhere in my kit I have some stainless steel wire, and that's something we've used on a few times too. I think once Dave lost the spring for the side stand. So the side stand, Jason's got some wire too there, and it comes in handy.
Jason, you got that fancy little tool to twist it? The mini twister?
I can't find it anymore.
Oh, you had like a safety wire tool?
Yeah.
No, but I have the true twisters, but Jason has a really cool tool that'll replace it. A lot more compact, not as easy going.
Yeah, it's about the size of a pencil. It's about the size of a pencil with a it's hollow and there's a screw in it with it looks like a T, and it allows you to wrap the wire around anything, and it allows you to bend it in a way that it won't undo itself without breaking it also. Because if you've ever tried like twisting this stuff to make it tight, as soon as it starts to get tight, it actually breaks.
Yeah.
And it's really compact, but I can't find it.
I have a bigger tool that uses wire, and it allows you to make like hose clamps out of wire, all kinds of stuff. Yeah. Like that's the safety wire.
This is the proper safety wire, lock wire pliers, but they're way too big. And Jason, at some point, he has to find that tool, I think
I got it.
A little tool that'll do the same thing as this, but in a manual process, and be able to. It's the final tightening of the wire that's really hard to get to when you don't have the pliers or you don't, an awkward space. So that's why you use this. But this is way too bulky. What Jason had was a replacement to this, and it works really well.
We're all looking for that little tool that can do the same job as the big tool. I have something similar in my tool bag. Where is it? Here. Yeah, this is not something I carry on the bike. This is something I just have in my little home repair kit. Whoop. This thing.
Yeah, that's it. Oh,
that's it. It's called the clamp tight
you stole
tool.
it from Jason.
No, I've had this for years, and I used it to make I've used wire to make hose clamp fittings on air compressor hoses, all kinds of stuff. And it's a really cool little tool because you're not just twisting the wire like you are with a with safety pliers. You're actually kind of folding it over on itself. I don't know if you can see here. Let me zoom in. Yeah, so it's got these pins on it that allow you to fold it and twist it. Anyways, it's called the clamp tight tool. It's made in America. I bought this in 2008, so I've had this a long time. And it's a great thing that allows you to use wire to do a lot more, because if you're just twisting wire like with safety wire pliers, you can't get it super tight without busting it. This actually folds the wire over on itself and creates like a hose clamp in a weird way. So that's something handy. And that's something I have too. I have a hose clamp somewhere in my kit in one of those little pouches. So I don't know, what else is there? I think obviously one of the things, we're talking about the flat tire stuff at the beginning, is you got to have a way to take your tires off. You got to take the wheels off. And that's something too. Like a lot of the motorcycle toolkits, I think the 1150 GS came with the tools to take the wheels off. But a lot of bikes, like Jason's got, you need some sort of a wrench with enough leverage to get those big bolts, and those are probably the biggest bolts you'll be dealing with. Small vice grips have been
the Nipex.
Yeah, and vice grips. Like everybody, I have a set in my kit. Chris snapped off his brake lever on the Classique one year, right at right where the lever goes in, and he didn't have a spare lever. And that little nub sticking out, we clamped vice grips on it, thinking it'll just get us to the road and his day is over. And we clamped those things on, and then we taped the vice grips so they couldn't open. And he did the entire day with that as his front brake lever, and it worked fine. So yeah, vice grips. I've used them as a shift lever on another bike. Brake lever, clutch lever, vice grips are. Yeah, I guess we didn't see them in my toolkit, but I love vice grips.
I don't have the vice grips. I actually have a set of spare levers that I carry now. So.
Yeah, which are they the same for the Husky?
I don't know. I don't know, but they're relatively cheap, and I had them customized. I cut them and re-weld them to make them shorter. So I get my own custom shorty levers, and so clutch, brake, and just the shift lever.
Shifter.
The rear brake I couldn't care less, because if you really lose that one, you can live without it.
Yep.
But these three are the essentials, and they live in the toolbox in the bottom of my skid plate. So
in the swamp,
they're always there in the swamp.
Oh, what's up? Jason's got something.
Oh,
he's got his magnet. Do you bring that on the bike?
Yep. Well, I mean, it weighs nothing.
Yeah.
Takes no space. And when that bolt goes at the wrong, usually it's when you end up tearing the bike more apart than just doing a tire change. And that bolt, that tiny little 8mm bolt, will fall somewhere. You can't find it between the radiator, the fan, or whatever. And this just fishes it out really quickly. Another thing that I find is really useful, like a couple of years ago with Ivan, I think that was the Ottawa Valley Rally. I was going up something, I fell over, and the chain jumped from the rear sprocket, and it was jammed between the wheel and the hub and the sprocket. And having a punch to just put up against the chain and bang it out of there, we were up and running in like 3 minutes.
Nice.
But,
yeah, that's a punch.
A huge amount of.
The punch is important also because having the punch also because brake pads on most calipers, the brake pads are held in place with a small pin going across the caliper, and you have to punch it out. If you don't have a punch, you're going nowhere. And doing trailside brake pad changes, it does happen. I've gone through a set of brake pads in less than 300K. If you got a greasy, grimy, sandy day, it'll wear out your brake pads in no time. So you're stuck. I always carry a set of brake pads with me on a longer ride. And that punch tool also, you'll need it to be able to take out the pads. It's actually the only tool you need to change pads on the Brembo calipers is the punch.
Yeah, and even something like a finishing nail, because I've used that in the garage where years ago when I didn't have a punch set, and I just got a nice big finishing nail and I used that to punch out the pads. So that wouldn't be a bad thing to have. Someone saying, how do you fix a radiator hole? Well, if you've got the JB Weld and the quick steel, that's probably going to be your best shot. And also, if you have that self-sealing silicone tape, if you punch a hole in a radiator hose, at least you've got half a chance of wrapping a radiator hose and getting out of there. Someone asked about spare bulbs. I don't think we're really worried about spare bulbs. Usually what happens for us is the turn signal gets ripped off. So
it's not spare bulbs, it's spare turn signals.
Like Jason, if you're on a multi-month trip, I guess not having a headlight's more of an issue than on a Sunday morning ride.
Yeah, exactly. I had when I went on the trip, I switched everything over to Xeon, and but I kept the original bulbs just in case. And in like I think at 50,000-ish kilometers, one of the transformers, or whatever the hell that thing is, just kept popping the breaker.
Yep.
The fuse, so I just switched it back to the old. And so because you can get tickets for that kind of stuff.
Yep. And also
another thing that Ivan has a much snazzier one than me, but for fork seals.
Oh yes, I have one of those. Yeah.
I've never used this one. I've used Coke cans, cut up in pieces. But
I used that once, and it worked. That little blue one you have, I was leaking and it worked. And I have that one now too, Ivan. That one is much nicer.
It lives on the bike. I just snap it onto the fork tube. We can see it from here. It lives there.
Yep. Nice. Yeah, and that one's
So
a lot
it just
more
stays on the
robust.
bike all the time.
Because that blue one
And
lasted one cleaning.
Yeah, exactly. These are throwaways.
Yeah, but it
There's
is.
also
I've used it a couple times. Yeah, clean up the crap under the dust seal and the
Yep.
oil seal, and then it'll stop a leak pretty quick. Because often that's the only problem when your forks are leaking. Often it's because you got just a little
Fred.
small speck of sand that went into the
Yep.
oil seal, and you got to clean it out and rinse it out. It's all good.
Gunther in Germany is leaving. Hey, have a good day, Gunther. And Jason, what were you saying there?
so when you're doing tire changes, to take the air out of your tire,
Yep.
there's that plug extractor.
Yep.
I like this one because compared to where's the camera?
Yeah.
The one where it's the tire cap or the
Yeah.
tube cap. I tend to lose those like basically every time I change the tube. So this one at least it's in the tool kit.
And
You
this
always have
one,
it.
this is that tool that you can use to snake out the valve stem. It also has one. And it's also
Actually,
got
yours
the one.
is way better than what I have.
Yeah.
I bought this one,
Oh yeah,
and
that
they're
one's crap.
super fragile. As soon as you
Yeah.
pull on it, it just separates.
Yeah. This one is really solid. And the other thing I like, it's got the valve core remover. And it's also got this, which you can screw in just to let air out too, which, yeah. I had a hard time finding these because I was going to buy another one because the same thing. I bought the one you have to put in the other bike, and I used it once and it just busted in like 2 seconds. So I'm not sure who makes this or where the hell I got it, but this one is nice. Nice. Okay, folks. Someone's asking, what's that made for? I think that's for cleaning out the dust seals.
Clean up dust seals.
Yeah. Someone
Someone's asking about the neoprene covers.
Yes. And Chris just had his forks done by Stadium Suspension here in Montreal. And their take on it was the neoprenes that just cover the junction between the slider and the tube are useless. Their take on it is the neoprene has to cover from the fork to slider or tube all the way down. So the entire area is covered.
Chrome section. The chrome section has to be entirely covered. Yeah.
Entirely covered. I've never used them. Where are you running them? Ivan, you don't use them?
No, I've never used them before. Actually, because I've always seen them with a kind of a zipper or whatever. They're in, they wrap around and they're universal and all that. I hadn't really researched them either, but like the ones that Chris has, they have to be slid over the fork and they're one piece. I think are much better. So I might try them. But I've heard a lot of people say that they're a must if you're not basically racing and servicing your forks after every single ride. You're just going to wash down the bike quick and all that. They'll save you the hassle. But I've never really had any fork seal problems or anything. I just rebuilt my forks this weekend, and I changed all the seals, and they were the originals that have been on the forks for 50,000 K. So
yeah, but that's easy K, riding around the neighborhood.
Yeah, just around the neighborhood. Absolutely. I don't go into water, mud. If it's raining, I don't go out.
Maybe the key is if you do a lot of water, it cleans it. Maybe people.
Maybe that's it. It's people who ride in the dry.
You got to get the water deep enough that your fork sliders are underwater to flush them out.
That's maybe the case.
The fork, the leak I got on the 640 was at around 60,000 kilometers, even that got fixed by just cleaning up the lid, lip.
So I think that's.
I think it's my take on those gators are, it's kind of you're fixing a non-problem.
Yeah. Like I think maybe if you're in situations where you don't have protection and your forks were getting hammered by debris or crap or something. But on most of our bikes, the sliders, like I'm looking at my Husky, there's nothing hitting the exposed part. So the only thing is going to be going through some deep crud. You might get a bit buildup, and the slider is going to wipe it clean. And the one time I had a leak, I used that Motion Pro blue thing. It was destroyed. And since then, I've bought the same one Ivan has, which I should put on the bike somewhere because it's not going to do me much good in my toolbox. Maybe we should make a list. Whoever wanted a list, yes, because I don't have a punch. I don't have the fork cleaner thing, the slider. So yeah, a list would probably be good.
This is my new favorite tool. Where's the camera?
Ooh.
I've been re-educated into using what is it, T handles?
Yeah, T-wrench.
They're just fantastic. It's so fast, you know. And this one is tiny. It's like the size of my.
And the nice thing is,
I've been thinking about that to replace my ratchet also.
Yeah.
With that 3-ended T handle that has its 1/4-inch drive, I think. Instead of having my ratchet, using that. So I'm
just that some spots.
I wouldn't replace the ratchet.
No, not because there's lots of spots you can't get in.
Places, the other one doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you're going inside the frame, you want the ratchet, but anything outside of the bike, it's it's fantastic.
It's nice, and
spare fuses. Somebody mentioned spare fuses. Yes.
Yes. If your bike has fuses.
Oh, yeah.
Riley, you know how much I like to minimize the weight on my bike.
Yep.
Anything I can shave off, I'll be happy. Well, that's for day trips. When I went on a long trip, I had basically this pouch of tools.
Yep.
Not much. It was full, but about it. And I had this. Those spare parts.
Nice. And what were you? So this was something when we talked before we started this. We were saying obviously there's different levels of preparedness. If you're going for a ride in your backyard, whatever, or you're going for a cruise to the Tim Hortons on your Honda Shadow, that's one thing. But if you're going to go 30, 40, 50, 60 kilometers into the woods, that's another thing. And then beyond that would be, going on a multi-month, multi-year trip like you did, Jason, where you're not only worried about breakdowns, but you're also now falling into maintenance in the sense that if you burn out a set of brake pads in tuck to nowhere, are you even going to be able to source parts? So now you're not just worried about crashing and breaking something or whatever, but now you're into wear items. So for your trip, what did you bring?
In hindsight, well, I didn't know this initially, and now I know better. So I brought a full set of wheel bearings, which I think is pointless to do, because I might be wrong, but I think that bearings, the when they rot on our bikes, the wheel bearings, it's mostly because we're going through water a lot, and then we just park it for 6 months for the winter, and that's when they rot. While if you're using it every day, bearings are fine. And after what was it, like 90,000 kilometers, when I did pop up the bearings, they were brand new. So that was I brought a full set of bearings for nothing. I did go, but so I do. The bike has some wear items. For example, the water pump bearings, they need to be changed every 40,000 kilometers, I think. So I brought a set of that. I also brought some specific tools to be able to do the job. Because the thing with these things is that in 40,000 ish, you need to do it, but there's no way where you're going to be in 40,000 kilometers. You can be in the middle of a desert for 3 weeks, or you might actually be in a large civilized area. So you bring the stuff to within reason, to be able to do it yourself. And so I had those. I had spare wheel spokes. I had two. I actually the rear wheel, the two bearings. There's a cylinder between the two, a spacer, and I reamed the side of it where they contact the bearings. So I'd be able to use the punch, not this one, a longer one, to actually punch out the bearings if I had to. I tried it. Before leaving, it works. It takes forever to do, but that was because if you break a bearing right inside of when you're alone and far from stabilization, that's a big problem. So you want to, the most probable issues are the ones you want to carry a fix for. But if you, like for the bigger items, for example, I forget where I was, just before Ecuador, I think, my rear shock just blew out. And it basically takes a month to get one. So you just make do with it for the time for the part to arrive, and plan ahead. But it's knickknack, right? It's the wear items, it's going to happen. Like I had a full carburetor rebuild kit, which I actually ended up using, because that's the disadvantage of a carburetor versus an injection, is that especially on a single cylinder like the 640, that's basically a paint shaker.
She's going to shake the crap out of that carburetor.
Yeah, it does, and it actually wow, I don't even remember the term for
float?
Is that the float?
Needle?
Big plastic thing that.
Yeah, the float.
Yeah. So yeah, that thing wears. It slides up on grooves, and it actually wears out the grooves, and then there's your fuel mixture goes to crap and everything. So having a spare one of those on the side of the side of the road at one point, because you're tired of having bad performance, was nice. But basically, when I chose that bike, it was because I thought I'd fallen into believing the reputation of the bike, or of KTM, which was they're finicky and they break down all the time. And I was kind of hoping that would be a cause of a source of adventure, breaking down in the middle of nowhere. They go, "Ooh, this is going to be interesting. How am I going to get out of it?" Didn't happen. The bike was reliable, so I guess KTM let me down in that aspect.
Well, there's still hope. You could buy a Royal Enfield for your next trip, or a Ural. Someone was just asking, do you have any specific tools for the Ural? The Ural is probably one of the few bikes that still comes with a comprehensive toolkit. Although, when I did check the toolkit when I first got it, some of the wrenches were not the sizes indicated. Like, it said it was a 9 or 10 millimeter, but it didn't fit on a 10 millimeter bolt. So I actually threw a few of the wrenches in the garbage just because they actually didn't fit the sizes they were marked on. But no, the Ural, there's no special tools to work on the Ural, and it's such a simple machine to maintain. It's either going to be running like a top with easy to fix issues, or from what I've read, it'll just be a catastrophic failure, in which case you're not fixing it on the side of the road anyways. So I don't really go too far from home on that anyways. The Kriega tool roll, the tool rolls, that's something too. The big hassle for me is the tools getting wet. If it's just in the tool roll itself, it gets wet, which is why I've always put it, my big tool roll won't actually fit in a tiny little dry bag like this. So I took a much bigger dry bag. Where's my cam here? Took a much bigger dry bag. You can see that's big, and I just cut it. And it still has enough roll top closure that I can put my tools in there with a couple of elastics, which are made out of slices of inner tube. It keeps it dry. And if I had waterproof side bags, whatever. But what we found, and I see Chris is on the chat now, is if you have side bags or any sort of bag that's 90% waterproof, it's actually worse because water gets in and it doesn't get out. Like bags that are 90% waterproof still let water in, but they're more than 90% effective at keeping the water in. So Chris had a giant loop or something, and water would always get in that thing and stay there forever. So the bags I have now are not waterproof, so everything in them is in waterproof bags. And like these little inner tube chunks with the ends folded over, and you can see it's got, I don't know if you can see the powder, it's still got that white, powder in it. It's never been wet in there, so it works amazing. I've had it where the bike's been submerged, like when the Husky fell over in that creek and was totally underwater. All the stuff in these little folded bits of inner tube was 100% dry. So that definitely works. And
for me, my main tool roll lives in my my backpack, Camelback. So that gets into the wet, when it's raining and all that, but it's not on the bike all the time. And then after that, I have a small tail bag, and in here I don't really care. It's my spare tube, my air pump, and a few knickknacks, special tow rope and all that, and some of that stuff is on the bike. But the waterproofness, you got to think about that too. What can be wet and what can't, and plan accordingly. One thing we haven't mentioned, first aid kit.
Yes.
I always carry one. This lives on the bike too, and it's up in my nav tower above the headlights on the bike. It's something, I think it's like number one with your tire changing kit. Should have that at least just for a minor cut or something more severe. Things, shit happens quick when you're riding out in the forest, so it's always good to have.
And I think in terms of the first aid kits, I was actually listening to something, a podcast the other day about first aid kits, and the guy was saying, really what you want in the first aid kit is something to treat that little cut and minor irritating thing that's happened to you, some tweezers or whatever. And then the next level really is something super serious, and all the crap in the middle is kind of irrelevant in a way. You really want to be able to treat something where, someone got a big puncture or wound or a little cut. Like, that's kind of the two extremes you're trying to deal with your kit. And the other thing
that's what you're going to do with this pretty much. There's enough to cut a decent cut, not getting your amputated, but a good cut happen, and then some painkillers, tweezers, and what's in here is an extra safety blanket, and that's it. And there's actually, you're not gonna do a world round hardcore expedition with this,
No, I have one of those safety blankets hidden under one of the shrouds on the bike, just for that you break down and you're forced to spend the night out somewhere, which amazingly has never happened, but just so you'd have something to wrap around yourself or make an improvised shelter. And the other thing you mentioned was the meds, and that's something that having some Motrin and some Tylenol, because if you sprain something, injure something, whatever, like when Mark injured himself on the Dakar that time, the first guy to stop was a paramedic, and he said, hey man, before it starts getting worse, he loaded him up on anti-inflammatory, because from what I understand, the Motrin stuff is better at dealing with inflammation, and the Tylenol is more just pain. And this medical advice is worth exactly what you paid for it. I think because they have different methods of absorption or something in your body, you can take them at the same time, if I'm not mistaken, because I think that's what the guy told Mark. Like, you can actually take the max dose of Motrin and the max dose of Tylenol at the same time. So,
he's still alive.
He's still alive.
A pill of morphine.
Yes, morphine. If you can get some oxy, send it to us. Go to your grandparents' drawer, get the oxy, and mail it to awesome players. But yeah, actually,
when I was given that thing, I was told to, if you're in a really bad crash, take half of it. Wait for, I forget now, it's years ago. Wait for like an hour, and if you're still like about to pass out, take the other half.
Yep. Yeah,
so,
and
it's when you're in really bad shape, then
and
passing out.
Because I'm in tip-top shape, if I know I'm doing a big all-day ride, I'll take some Motrin in the morning. I'll actually do some preemptive bonbon munching. And I thought it's kind of been funny on a couple of the rides where we were there with Dave and Mark and I, whatever. After breakfast, someone whips out the bottle of Motrin. Hey, who wants some? And everybody scarfing down their vitamins. Is a medical kit on the Ural a flask of vodka? Some motorcycle clubs do have first aid sessions. Yeah, actually, the Ride Aventure, which organizes the Classique, a couple of years ago, they had a free first aid CPR course for all of the team leaders. So yeah, it's not a bad idea. Although I can tell you, having done the course years ago and having done it again like 3 years ago, if you needed me to CPR you right now, you'd probably be in trouble. Like, it seems probably should be something you do every year. But I figure I'll be the guy getting the CPR, so I'm not super worried about it. You want a compressive bandage to wrap that ankle or wrist. This is from David. That's why you have the spare inner tube, Dave. It's a multi-useful piece of kit. What else we got here in the chat? What white powder? Did you get that tube from Cuba? Yes. I'm not sure what was shipped in these inner tubes. They're expensive. Like, an inner tube this size is $18,000. But once you empty all the powder out of it, they work excellent. Excellent. No, the only product I have from Cuba is good old, where are we here? Ooh, Havana Club. I don't know if you guys can get that in the States. Are you still on Cuban embargo? And this is not the good stuff, because the good Havana Club is the 7-year-old. This is just the regular. But it's still much better than most rums. Yeah. And because I was doing a booze order, because the liquor store is delivering during the pandemic, you made a $12 charitable donation to a food bank and they would deliver your booze for free. I also bought this stuff, which is maple whiskey, which is really only drinkable in coffee, I guess. I don't know what other application.
Quite a tangent here in the tools.
Maybe cook with it?
Well, these are the tools to help you deal with life. Very, very important category of tool.
Yeah.
All right, folks. If you got your questions, get them in. I like to have 3 or 4 inches of ABS tubing, the one used for sewer, and I fix that under my left side rack so tools are always on the bike. Yeah, the old KLR tool tube. When we used to put our tubes, there's another company that sells a tube which was actually for holding instruction manuals that had a nice screw-on cap. So a lot of bikes have space in between the bike and the side racks to put a tool tube. Back in the day, a lot of guys used to have it on the front of the skid plate on a KLR. And yeah, with like hose clamps. And of course, one day, Joe stopped at the end of the day and realized he'd hit something, cracked the end off it, and all his tools had fallen out. So we stopped doing that. No, you can't get Cuban
if you
rum.
got the real estate, if you got the real estate on your bike to have all of your tools in a nice waterproof container that's living on the bike, that's great. You can do that, but it depends on what you're riding and all that. Like on my bike, I got some stuff that lives on the bike, but most of it has to be either on me in my pack sack or in panniers if I go on a longer trip. But there's only a minimum you can carry on the bike, depending. And I always vary my equipment depending on the length of the ride. Like Riley mentioned and Jason, if you're going for a weekend, I don't carry much. But if I'm going for 3-4 days, there's a lot more stuff that gets added to the maintenance kit. You always have to think about what you're realistically going to be able to do or what you would do working on your bike in the trail. Are you going to pull out a motor on a weekend ride in the middle of the bush? Probably not. You're going to get towed out. But if you're traveling around the world like Jason did, you got some maintenance stuff to do, so you're going to have more spare parts and most likely more tools.
Yeah, and if you're going on a multi-day event, like you're going up to, like we do for the Fundy Adventure Rally, so you're going up to New Brunswick for a week, then I bring this. So this is just, I don't know where I got this box, but that's just my spare part kit for the Husky. So brake pads, all the bearings, all the seals, spare parts to rebuild a clutch, master cylinder, spark plugs, oil filters. So basically, if I had to do a service on the bike, I have everything there. So I'm not going to carry that on the bike, but having this little case where I throw that in the truck or the trailer, and now, because we've had it happen on those rallies where you burn through a set of brake pads in one day. So if you're there for a week, you're not stranded in the forest, but you get back to your cabin and you go, I don't have any brake pads. What am I going to do? Drive for 4 hours to a dealer? They're closed. It's Sunday. So this would be kind of my throw it in the truck if I was going on a multi-day event. And certainly for things like the clutch slave cylinder, the last time we were at the Fundy, we had a problem with it on Jason's bike, and man, we spent an entire day. We ended up buying a used set off another bike, and man, we pumped probably $500 plus 5 liters of DOT4 through that thing trying to bleed it. So when I just did it on the Husky, because I switched from the factory one to an Oberon, I thought that bleeding this thing is going to be a nightmare. So I put it on. I had my daughter squeezing the clutch lever, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, hold, and then I'd open the bleeder. We did it like 10 times and it was bled. And it was like, wow, this is amazing. Because we're in the garage, it's warm, it's dry, and I can't even ride my motorcycle, so it took 5 minutes. And of course, with Jason, where it's like, the rally's tomorrow! And we're doing it out in the dirt. It was like that was like an 8-hour plus event.
Yeah. But then again, I guess it's like the valve in the one on top is the master or the slave? I think it's the master, right?
Top is master.
Master.
Right. So the master valve on it is it's one way. So on the one I have, so there's no way you can actually suck it from the bottom. When I got back from the rally, I tore it apart to see what it was, and
and that's something like a rebuild kit for a clutch master cylinder, it's not something you're going to fix on the trail, but on a week-long event,
Yeah.
that kit costs what, Ivan? You just bought one.
I think it was 50
$30.
$30,
50,
and
yeah, probably some $30.
and
It's like
the last
nothing.
time,
I actually have one now.
yeah, and when we went to Fundy, I had my Mighty Vac. I did bring a torque wrench. Like when you're going on a week-long trip where you have a support vehicle, then yeah, why not bring a torque wrench? Why not bring a jug of brake fluid? Why not bring, you bring a little bit extra, because you might have to change brake pads, you might have to change a chain and sprockets. I actually saw something yesterday, which for the first time, which was a guy had a system so he could change sprockets on the rear wheel without taking the rear wheel off. He was taking the sprockets and having them cut in half so that he could actually take off half the sprocket, replace it with a smaller one, so he could actually change from a big rear sprocket to a smaller rear sprocket without even having to take the rear wheel off.
How complicated was his bike to not have to take the rear
I don't
wheel
know.
off?
It was,
Jesus
but I thought it was an
Christ.
interesting thought and apparently he's not the only guy who's done it, but I thought, well, that's kind of an interesting idea that you could take off half the rear sprocket at a time. So yeah. What does it say here? Yeah, Chris was talking about his fork boots. One of the things they gave him, because that fork boot is covering the entire exposed slider, is eventually the fork guard will wear a hole in it. So what they give you is just a big zip tie, and you install the zip tie so that the buckle part of the zip tie keeps the fork guard from rubbing a hole in the neoprene. So that was one of the tips there. At least you had a lovely falling apart cabin to do the service in. Actually, that's from Blast. The cabin we had this year at the Fundy Adventure Rally was awesome compared to the year before. The year before we had the cabin by the lake, and it was brutal. Oh, I see we're... There we go. Yeah, we had a cabin. Oof, we had a rustic cabin at the Fundy a couple of years ago. And by rustic, I mean water running through the fuels panel rustic.
I think rustic was an overstatement.
Someone here too, a headlamp. Yeah, I think I have one. It's in my tank bag, like some sort of flashlight. We all have, I believe, probably some sort of flashlight for when we bust down. Well, folks, what time are we at here? Hey, I wanted to get this one in at under 2 hours. So, Ivan, any last thoughts? Or if anybody's got any last questions, get them in now.
Yeah, just think about your toolkit, what realistically you'll be doing, the type of riding, and what you'll be able to fix, and if you can do it, actually. So don't carry too much shit. We're always worried that, I'll maybe need this, maybe need that, but just some quick stats on what I carry. I carry a lot of stuff, but I was surprised yesterday. I weighed it out. Let's start off with the Awesome Players branded gear. Our booster kit weighs half a pound.
Not
the
bad.
douche rope weighs 1/3 of a pound, 0.3 pounds, 140
Is that
grams.
a
so
clean douche rope?
It's a clean douche rope, new. My
Nice.
tool kit, the roll that I showed earlier, weighs just under 2 kilos, so 4 pounds. And my tail bag with the spare tube and all that weighs 4.5 pounds. And the parts that I have, the brake pads, levers, and all that is just under 2 pounds. So I carry an all spare parts, and this is when I take on the bigger rides. Spare parts and tools, I have about 12 pounds on me and the bike in terms of tools.
Nice.
Toilet paper roll. I just saw that. Somebody says toilet paper roll. Yes.
Yep, that's mandatory.
Not toilet paper. Wet wipes.
Wipes.
Yes. That is also
That's
number one
luxury.
on the list with your tire changing kit. Very good
Jason,
point.
you're not a fan of the wipes?
Not really. I don't like that moist feeling.
We want to know what's your trick to go shit in the woods.
The key to shitting in the woods is knowing what poison ivy looks like. Jason, what's your final words of wisdom?
On long trips, you need tools for the bike, but you also need tools for you. And this is what I bring. This was actually my first bottle for the trip.
Nice.
And I kept it. So this one went from Montreal to Minden. I think it's the start of the TCAT, Minden.
Oh, Minden, Ontario.
Yep.
And that took you, what, 2 days to get there?
2 days? 2 days to get there?
4 hours.
4 hours. 4 hours into the trip. Someone just asked, do we bring front and rear tubes? Usually we just bring a front. I think we talked about it earlier because you can always use it. TP or wet wipes are a must. Yep, for sure. Don't even want to ask if you're taking them out with you. That would be... Usually we pack out our trash, but I think organic material is best left in situ. A pocket packs of Kleenex and some rags. Yeah, usually we have rags. Ivan made us all rags to clean our glasses, which are like a kind of, where is it here? You know, that microfiber stuff. And dun, dun, dun.
We need another version of those, though.
Now we have the Awesome Players branded rags.
It's not a trick that I came up with. It's from some of our friends that Jason and I ride with at the Ottawa Valley Rally and all that. They're two brothers, the Ben brothers and all that, and they always had a rag, like a handkerchief, white, like the old fighter pilots back in the day that was flapping in the breeze and all that. I says, why do you guys carry those rags around? They says, well, we don't stop to clean our goggles while we ride when they're all dusty. You know, you're following somebody in dusty. We don't stop. We take the rag and we wipe our goggles as we're ripping down the trail. Right. So that's where it came from, and that's why I made those rags after, because it's true. It says if you're stopping every 5K to clean off your goggles and that, you have to dig out your rag. It says you just clip it to your pack sack, your jacket or whatever, and as you ride, you just wipe down your goggles or your visor or whatever, and you're on your way. You don't stop too often to do that. So that's where
and
it
the
came
other
from. And then
the other tip,
purpose,
which is an Ivan tip, is when you're riding in the rain and your glasses, if you're a Johnny Four Eyes like most of us are, is if you start touching those all the time with your gloves, your hands, a rag, you're going to screw them up, scratch them, whatever. What works great is the exhaust. And we had that happen at Fundy a few years ago where it just rained, and every now and then we'd stop, everyone would pull their glasses out, hold it, rev, and just let the exhaust blow them clean. Worked amazing. Yeah. That was a really good tip. Good info on toolkits. One thing I would suggest is for people to get training on how to work on their bikes and practice in a garage. It's an interesting point because one of the things I was listening to, there's a radio podcast called Adventure Rider Radio or something, which has some decent episodes. And one of the guy's points was, if you don't know how to use tools, don't bother bringing any. You know, like your toolkit should also kind of tie into your competency level. If you're riding with a bunch of guys who are semi-competent, bring spare parts so that they can fix your bike for you. But there's no point in having the mega toolkit, even tire changing stuff. If you find a list of stuff on the internet and you buy, the boys are frozen here. What's happening? Are they back? Yeah, there we go. You were frozen a bit. If you're not going to learn how to change a tire on the side of the trail. So if you buy all that crap and you're 30 miles into nowhere in some mosquito-infested hellhole on the side of a trail with a bike with no center stand, and you whip out your tire changing kit and decide to go at it, I would rather just ride the rim out of there than be a part of that, because that is going to be a disaster. So I would say do a couple of tire changes in the comfort of your garage. And maybe that's another good argument for doing your own tire changes when you buy new tires. Like if you're going to be off-road riding at all, you should just be doing your own tire changes, period. So that you get it down to a system. So that when it happens, it's a 15-minute endeavor. The first time, no one is good at it the first time. I mean, some of us
Still not
aren't
good at
good at it now. Many times.
And we end up going through so many tires during the season and all that. So at some point, changing them yourself, you'll save a lot of money. I think where I buy the tires, the guy would probably be retired now and filthy rich if he had to change all the tires that I've changed. But I'm keeping him from doing that because I change my own tires. Yeah, the first time is practice on a child's bicycle first, or your bicycle. It's the same thing, just a lot easier. And then after that, you upgrade to doing motorcycle tires. And even very stiff sidewall slick race tires on a sport bike can be done, because our friend Pat, who used to race, and he used to do that on his race bike, with the same ways we do our motocross tires, would change street tires and all that, no problem. It's just a question of practice and technique, and just try it out. Not half an hour before your planned ride. Give yourself some time, like a day, and try to doing your first very own tire change. Being it with a tube, a bit more tricky, or a tubeless.
Someone said, it sounds like the answer is to always ride with Riley. No, I would say it's best to ride with Jason, Ivan, Pat, and Eric. Those would be the 4 guys you want to ride with, so that you could get a wheel bearing change, a new clutch, and your tires all done at the same time in about 35 minutes. So, yes, that would be... My job is to hold the camera. That's my specialty. So, yeah, cable ties, that's something too. I've even seen somebody use cable ties to hold a flat tire on. And you were talking about technique, Ivan, for tire changing. I just watched a YouTube video where a guy changed the tire on a semi using hand tools. He unmounted the wheel, pounded the thing off with a sledgehammer or something, and using crazy long tire irons, changed this tire in like 15 minutes, just using hand tools because he had the technique.
If you're gonna look at also some of the footage from the Dakar rally and all that, those Russian guys in their Kamaz trucks and all that, these monster off-road 6-wheel drive trucks, they change their tires by hand. They don't have a machine. Everything is done with tire levers by brute force. And these tires are massive. They're like 5 foot tall. They need a crane to unload them from the trucks and all that. And the guys will change the tires by themselves with tire levers. So
like
I think it's possible.
Aren't those levers like 6 foot long?
Yep. Give me a lever long enough, right? Move the world. I bought a tire changer that bolts to the garage floor. The only thing I really like about it is that it has a bead breaker. So it's super fast to break the bead, which is convenient. And it holds the tire off the ground. So you're not crawling around on the floor. So it actually clamps the rim, and you're working at a much higher level than being on your hands and knees. But the part with the big long bar, it's a Nomar bar and all that stuff, I haven't used that in years. It's just a nice work surface. And it's really easy to work on a tire when it's not moving around. So the fact that the rim is actually clamped and you can pry without it wiggling makes it easier. But I would never buy a tire changing machine again. I'd actually buy one of those folding tire stands that just folds up, and it has a pin so you can slide the tire on it and it doesn't move around. That'd be it. Like, once you've changed enough of them with tire irons, it's such a non-event. Buying a tire changing machine no, I wouldn't bother. A lot of people are talking about multi-tools. Yeah, everybody has a Leatherman or something kicking around, but oddly enough, I don't use it much. Like, it's nice to maybe have a knife, and it's not a great knife, but in terms of fixing stuff with it, I don't think I ever really used it during a repair, except to maybe cut a zip tie or do something. So
Yeah, I have one when I go hiking, but not on the bike.
Yeah.
It's.
I think I have one in my backpack.
I have a Leatherman on the bike, and it's been there for ages. I've almost never used it. It's there because it's there, but it's like the backup of the backup type deal.
Yeah, like I if I had a choice between bringing a pair of tweezers and a Leatherman, I'd probably take the tweezers. But anyways. All right, well, the dream of coming in at under 2 hours has once again died. It's been 2 hours and 3 minutes. So let me try to get organized here, because if we don't roll the closing logo, the world will end. So guys, Ivan, Jason, thanks for chiming in. I think next week, Jason, we were thinking maybe we'll do an episode where you talked more in depth about your big trip. And the other thing coming up is with Bruno, who rode with you for part of the trip. And the other thing that a lot of people have been asking is for some chat about gear. So I think maybe next week we'll do the gear, and that'll give us a little more time to get ready to do something with you and Bruno about the trip, just because for that one I will want to have some. You must have taken 1 million pictures on that. We'd have to get a bit organized to show pictures and all that. So next week we should be back to talk about riding gear, and I guess that's it. So once again, thanks for watching. If you want to buy patches or stickers, we are selling now the embroidered patches like this one here. You can go to awesomeplayers.com. If you have any questions or you want to talk to any of us directly, if you send an email to info@apormc.com, we'll get that email, and then I can direct it to whoever. You can head over to Facebook. So if you go to Facebook, type in Awesome Players, we're easy to find. If you want to send us a messenger there, or if you want to share something, a picture, a link to one of your videos, whatever, Facebook is also a good place to do it. So I guess with that, we'll say goodbye. Cheers. Ciao.
And you guys.
Logo.